Hey, I'm Carr, and the most recent earthquake in Haiti has left over 2,000 Haitians dead, and that's just what's been accounted for. We haven't even found all of the bodies that are missing. Haiti hasn't even finished rebuilding from the last natural disaster 11 years ago, and I can't even bring myself to think about what could come with the next environmental event. The country is also still in turmoil after the assassination of their president. And I'm really sorry to open on such a depressing note, but looking at how foreign aid has been mismanaged in the past and thinking about the seemingly eternal poverty of Haiti, I think that now more than ever, as anarchists, we need to have a serious conversation about what is best for the people of this island nation. At the end of the video, I'll go over some ways that you can assist Haiti and be certain that your dollars are going to the hands of the Haitian people in the most helpful ways. So, right now, there are three questions that many people ask with regards to Haiti. Why is Haiti so poor? Why is there always so much destruction and loss of life in the aftermath of hurricanes and earthquakes? And why is foreign aid always mismanaged during these crises? Well, a brief history lesson can answer the first two questions. Haiti is a small island nation in the Caribbean. Being an island in the Americas, naturally, it was ripe for plunder and pillaging by European colonizers, and the French and the Spanish set eyes on Haiti. Unlike most of the other islands in the Caribbean, people of sub-Saharan African descent make up 95% of the population. This is a black nation, and one of the few nations in the Americas that has remained under black rule since its independence. The black population of Haiti exists due to it being a former French slave colony. Slaves were brought over from the African continent and sold into slavery on white-owned plantations on Haiti, growing sugar, cane, and coffee. This was a brutal slave colony, with slaves being violently driven to work inhuman hours. Saint-Domingue, as it was called at the time, became the most profitable French colony in existence due to the slave labor force and its coffee and sugar exports. In 1791, free black men teamed up with some Spanish soldiers on the island to gather up slaves and form an army to carry out a revolt. What followed was perhaps the most historic slave revolt in human history. When Jean-Jacques Dessalines took over the revolution, he used guerrilla tactics to fight off the armies of the legendary Napoleon, ultimately becoming the most successful opposition to Napoleonic France in history. Newly freed slaves tore through the streets, violently slaughtering any remaining white inhabitants, with the exceptions of some Polish indentured servants who took up arms with their black allies and a German encampment. Haiti became the first nation to completely abolish slavery on the planet. This slave revolt made headlines around the world, which is no small feat in an era before radios even existed. Napoleon was so discouraged by the defeat that he sold Louisiana to the United States and pulled out of the Caribbean entirely and gave up on establishing new colonies in the Americas. It's easy to sit back in awe at the bravery and tenacity of a black nation fighting off their colonial oppressors, but we can't forget that this independence was won at a very heavy cost. Black slaves outnumbered French colonists 10-1, and that disparity was reflected in the casualties of this revolution. Hundreds of thousands of Haitians were dead when the dust settled. Much like what we would later see in Vietnam, it is possible to fight off a larger foreign military power, but there is always a massive human cost. In the U.S., which was a slave-owning nation at this time, news of the slave revolt spread and made slave owners so terrified of the prospect of a domestic slave uprising that a whole new class of fugitive slave laws were put on the books to violently suppress any potential resistance. In 1805, Haiti established its own constitution, and from 1805 to 1825, Haiti, now in control of its own imports and plantations, rapidly became one of the wealthiest nations on the planet. Turns out people really like coffee and sugar. But of course, European powers couldn't let an independent black island nation in the Americas become a wealthy world power. So they showed up in 1825, demanding, I kid you not, reparations for their lost property. Their lost property in this case, the freed slaves that had kicked them out. I have to reiterate that I am not joking. France teamed with the United States to establish a debt that they claimed Haiti owed the French for the loss of revenue from owning human beings. Part of the debt was handled by Citibank, by the way. And Haiti was compelled to pay it and received no assistance from any other nations in resisting this extortion. They finished paying this initial debt in 1947. Throughout the 1900s, private companies would use Haiti's financially hindered state to come in and siphon wealth away from the people of Haiti and into the coffers of overseas capitalists. So now you understand why Haiti is a poor nation. There have been movements to push France to repay this money that was extorted from them. France has forgiven parts of their national debt, but have refused to repay any of the money they were already paid. The thing to keep in mind, though, the Haitian people may be poor, but there are definitely rich people in and profiting off of Haiti. There are select few owners of the companies that export goods and raw materials from Haiti to the United States and Canada, who are Haiti's biggest customers. But the people of Haiti remain poor. So it should be no shock that a lot of the people of Haiti don't have the money to build the most durable homes. It's also much harder to live outside city limits away from services and retail and education. So the majority of the population lives in shacks and shanties clustered in the major cities, which just so happens to sit right on top of a fault line. Building rickety makeshift buildings on top of a fault line on an island in the Caribbean, that is a recipe for disaster. Sure is a good thing that there aren't any human factors making natural disasters more frequent and more destructive. Unfortunately, the Haitian government is also susceptible to many of these disasters. Oftentimes, important officials who can make decisions themselves become casualties. As such, foreign aid dollars and shipments are mismanaged. So I've told you the history that has led to Haiti's poverty, and why foreign aid often does not reach the people. Now, how do we help the people of Haiti? Well, we empower the people of Haiti. Haiti is a poor nation despite being a net exporter of fish and lumber and coffee and cacao. But these industries are not unionized, nor are they collectively owned or democratically controlled. The average worker in Haiti lives on $2 a day. The answer to how we stabilize the government and prevent future political unrest, the answer to how we make the people less vulnerable to gang violence, the answer to how we give people the material wealth needed to build safer, more durable homes, the answer to how we feed the hungry and house the homeless people of Haiti is to collectivize the industries. The workers of Haiti need to be the ones with the final say over the means of production, not a bunch of foreign investors and oligarchs. We've already found all the way back in 2010 that foreign aid is best when it is done with the cooperation and focus of the locals at the community level, asking them what they need and what would be best for their communities to rebuild. Haiti doesn't need a massive state apparatus. They don't need free market capitalism. They need what allowed them to shake off the chains of bondage and colonialism during that revolt all those years ago. All power to all people. In the description of the video, I will put a link if you wish to donate to assist relief efforts. It is an organization called HaitiOne, who works with local community groups to ensure that every cent donated goes to actually help the people of Haiti. They even have an itemized list of current needs and what the costs are and how your contribution will help. When I think about Haiti, I think about a black diaspora that has grown into an island nation and has the ability to benefit from anarchy and socialism. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please click like and subscribe. There is a charity in the description on how to help the people of Haiti. If you would like to see more videos from the channel, make sure to click the little bell to receive notifications. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitch, where I conduct live streams. Follow me on Twitter, where I'll give you the best tips on how to sharpen your machete. And if you're so inclined to support the channel, I do have a Patreon. Thanks again.